Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lori Anne. I am Coach Lori Anne. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, empower, and ignite you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you too can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. Welcome to the show. I hope you're having a beautiful day. I know I am, but I usually do. On Healthy Lifestyle, we're going to give you some verbal caffeine to light you up today with possibilities. And today on our show, we have the beautiful Alison Smith. She's described as unconventional, thought-provoking, and inspirational. Alison just first started using metaphor as a means of solving problems in the mid-90s. As a result of the success metaphor provides her clients, Alison developed what she calls the Landscaping Your Life toolkit and has been using nature's landscapes as metaphors for our lives to help us get back on track when we're stuck and don't know what to do for the last 23 years. Alison is an author of Can't See the Wood for the Trees and has a podcast called Landscaping Your Life with Alison Smith. Great name. Alison lives in Scotland. How exciting is that? And so long as there's sparkle on the sea, can often be found swimming throughout the year at the local beach. You won't find me there, Alison. I'll watch from the sideline. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, thank you. Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, so happy to have you on. So we don't know a lot about you, Alison Smith. So tell us about you and what your work life looks like.
Work life is a mix of coaching, workshops, writing, podcasting, and then a little bit of consultancy thrown in now and again.
Loving it, loving it. And tell us more about you. Where do you come from? How did you get into coaching and doing what you do?
Yeah, I was really lucky in the sort of late 90s. This is when I start to show my age.
Don't do math. People don't do math.
Yeah, absolutely. I went on a neuro-linguistic programming workshop and master practitioner, trainer training. And I came back and our organization at the time was merging with another bank. And so my manager said, oh, well, you can use all your coaching stuff. So I sort of became the team coach, really. And so it was brilliant because I didn't have to try and sell what I did. I could just use it. And people then got into oh, if you've got a problem, go and speak to Alison. She'll sort you out. I was able to use a lot of the tools and techniques in training that we did, in team building, in looking at how we brought the team together. And that's when I first used gardening as a metaphor for supplier management, actually, and found out how brilliant metaphor is. Because, I don't know how many of your listeners really get excited about supplier management, but
oh, that's hot. That's really
hot. Yeah. and the thing is we were wanting to get the managers we were talking to listen to us on that subject, and it's not unsurprisingly, they weren't listening. But we did have problems with suppliers. And suddenly we started doing workshops where we're going, look, let's imagine what we'd do in a garden. We've got to mow the garden, we've got to weed the garden, we've got to water, we've got to do all these things with the plants. Think about where we put the plants. And suddenly the light bulbs went on with all these managers going, yeah, we've gone and put that plants, that supplier in the wrong place. It's no wonder they're letting us down. It's nothing about them. We've just put them in the wrong conditions. We're not giving them what they need. And so it just enabled us really quickly to get those managers that were bored and not at all interested in what we were talking about, interested in what we wanted them to do and taking action. And so that was oh my God, look at the power of metaphor. And that was, I suppose, using gardening as a metaphor for supplier management. And then Landscaping Your Life came about because I realized that, so if I expand it to nature landscapes, then I can use it to apply to anybody's life. And so now, so the other week I had somebody there wandering around in their local landscape. I'm sitting in the office and we're having a conversation about the patterns in nature, helping them get back on track.
Yeah. No, and metaphors always work because everybody can connect to them, right?
Well,
So,
yeah,
and you get a
yeah,
visual when you say things like that. Like right away, you were walking me through what it looks like. I'm a big SOP girl, a standard operating procedure girl, similar type of a thing. It's like, well, did we, are we going through these steps? But by going through the steps, it's a little dry. So by giving it that picture, it makes it a lot easier because we learn from stories, right? Our
absolutely.
best stories. So that landscaping, the metaphors definitely work. So you definitely use metaphors. You kind of stumbled on it, but you brilliantly
Yeah.
stumbled on it. And so, why do you use nature in your work?
I think there's a number of reasons. I could come up with because nature's good for us, which it is. It's all around us, which it is. It's available 24/7, 365, which it is. However, and I suppose I used nature before I came up with this bit part of it, but there's an element of we use nature when we're stuck in our language. So, quite often anybody listening when they're stuck might resonate with stuck in a rut, uphill struggle, stuck between a rock and a hard place. In the UK, and I know it doesn't always travel so well, we'd say can't see the wood for the trees. In some areas, it might be can't see the woods for the trees or can't see the forest for the trees. So that one, so we do sometimes have to think about the idiom we're using within our own locale, really. But what I realized was we're using that idiom and that metaphor to describe our sense of stuckness, because if we were to describe how stuck we felt, we'd be here forever, and also we'd sort of support the story we've got about why we're stuck. So if you said to me, so why, tell me more about why you can't see the wood for the trees, but asked for the details of the situation, we could be here forever chatting about
Well, it elevates the event again.
yeah,
So it brings it right back up. So it bubbles
yeah,
it back up. It's like, no, we're trying to simmer this pot down.
yeah.
Yeah.
And quite often, like when we say can't see the wood for the trees, we're actually saying I can't see the wood for the trees, I'm stuck and I'm overwhelmed. So not only are we saying we're actually saying we can't do anything, there are no solutions. So what I then say is, well, hang on a minute, let's just think about if we can do it in nature, if we can go out into the wood, great. And I have done it with leadership teams where we're out in a wood, but let's just imagine somebody resonates with can't seeing the forest or the wood for the trees. Okay, so what would you do if you were in that situation? If you were in that landscape, in those trees, in that forest, what would you do to see it? And suddenly you go from going, I can't see the wood for the trees, I don't know what to do, to saying, oh, I'd take a path out. I'd cut some of the trees, I'd climb a tree, I'd go to a higher ground to look at it. I'd get out of the wood. And actually, over the 20 years, every week I hear another solution. So can't see the wood for the trees. So it's never ending. And I've done it a few times in the podcast, and more latterly, I've sort of, I'm just going to go out and notice what I notice. And I get excited because I go, oh, I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah. Yes. It's like reading a book again or watching a movie again. You watch it for the 100th time and went, did she always have red shoes on? I never noticed that before. It's the little details that you're going, huh? And you're also looking at it with a different set of eyes because you've had different experiences. So you might not notice it the first time because you weren't ready for it. So now when you notice something new, you're like, huh, that's interesting. Now you have to ask your question, like, why am I noticing? Why does it look this way? Why am I asking this question this way to myself? It allows for expansion. So and I love your metaphors because they meet you wherever you are. So wherever you are in your journey, they meet you.
The hardest thing sometimes, if I'm doing it in a group, is that other people try to tell other people what their metaphor means. It's like, no, you might be able to see that pattern, but let's just allow that person to see the pattern that resonates for them. Yes. And yes, if they continue to be stuck, we can say, well, I quite often will go, so what is this telling us? I've noticed. So somebody was at a crossroads, so we were going for a walk. I was with them rather than at the other end of the phone. Every crossroads they came to, we were in a botanical garden, so every crossroads did have like signposts.
Yes.
But every time we got to a crossroads, so I'm going, just let's notice the pattern about your decision making about which direction to go. And I really don't know how we managed to do it, because every crossroads there was one direction that didn't have a signpost telling you where you were going, and that was the direction this person took. So every time we got to, they went for the path less travelled, the one where people hadn't gone. And it was huge insight for them that they'd been applying for the wrong jobs. They'd been asking for the wrong job, because what they were brilliant at work was going where other people hadn't been, to bringing new business into the organisation. And they'd been applying for jobs that, filled other people's shoes. And they're going, oh, and literally that was me observing that pattern, because it was like it was like a big flashing light, really, because it's that whole, have you noticed that every crossroads you're doing this? Well, how is that, how does that represent itself at work? And they went, oh yeah.
Yes. So those aha moments, which are beauteous for in our business, those aha moments are those special moments, and why you need somebody helping you, why you need an observer. I used to negotiate contracts, and when I negotiated contracts, I used to be the second person, and I would be the observer to tell, because you can't speak and you can't be thinking and processing at the same time as observing. Those are things we can't do at the same time. Some people get really good at it and they could do a little bit of it at the same time. It's always good to have a second set of eyes, right? You've heard that expression.
Yeah.
I would sit in the second seat, and then I moved into the first seat to do the negotiations. And I always had somebody looking as the observer, who are seeing the body language and reading and interpreting things, so that I have a different point of view. It's almost like having a bird's eye view and then the street view. If you would go to like a Google map, it shows you kind of different things, and the different perspectives help you guide you along your way. So I love that you use the metaphor, but also they were physically seeing it and then applied it to what they were doing and taking that moment. I mean, you had paused to not work on that problem per se, but to look at it and go, here's something you might want to take a look at. Here's something you might want to think about, right?
And it's easier because it's not in the context, and therefore they're not trying to defend their current situation. They don't feel attacked. I might be saying, how might this pattern be applicable? But I'm not noticing that pattern at work. I'm saying, this is what I am observing in this walk. They can then go, oh yeah, I do that at work. And then that opens up the conversation to be able to say, so what's that about? How you might, shall we explore what that looks like in the landscape again?
Yeah.
Let's make different decisions.
Yeah. And is that what someone could expect from your book, Landscaping Your Life?
Yeah. The landscaping.
And that's on Amazon, right? Landscaping Your Life?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, the book is Can't See the Wood for the Trees, Landscaping Your Life. So you'd still be able to find it if you used Landscaping Your Life. Basically the book is, if you're a coach, then the first half of the book's quite helpful, because it gives you a bit more of the tech, the sort of the process and the tools and techniques. If you're stuck, then I suspect that what you do is you go to the second half of the book and you just go, which of these sayings resonates with how I'm feeling? Yeah. Feeling like a fish out of water, going round in circles. And then each chapter has got a bit of a story explaining how I've done it with a client. And then normally 3 or 4 different ways that you could then resolve it, either by in nature, in your head, drawing, lots of imagining, changing it, not changing it. So there's lots of different ways to do it. So each chapter isn't the same, although there's a number of sort of, I suppose, repeating tools and techniques that get applied to the different situations.
But, we learn from repetition. So the repeating tools are important because they apply in different ways. So you're taking the same tool and applying it a lot of different ways. So that's really cool. How can we use, and I know languaging is really important, and our nonverbal is superiorly stronger than our verbal. But how can we use language to find solutions?
I think this comes back to the noticing, and it is about the conscious noticing of noticing the impact words are having when we're saying them. So for instance, I had one client where they were, and I can't quite now remember the way round, but I don't suppose it matters. So they were looking for answers and they weren't finding them, and they were getting really frustrated. You need to help me find the answers. And actually the words looking and answers were what was stopping them finding them. So as soon as, you could change with the verb, but let's just assume that we're looking for solutions or looking for options or alternatives or different perspectives. It's having a conversation about which of those words calms you down and opens your mind up to seeing those options. Because it's as if we believe in the lack of options because we can't see them, forgetting it's our language that's stopping us. It's like, I saw something on LinkedIn the other day and it said, how would you help with people achieve their deadlines? I said, stop using the word. If there was ever a word that is going to instill stress, that's going to stop us accessing our brain, deadlines is it.
Yeah. It's so funny you said that. I was speaking to a colleague of mine this morning, and we work at this time of year. We're working on goal setting and doing all things like that. And then we turn them into affirmation. I'm so happy and so happy and excited that blah blah blah, right? And she goes, every time it's happy and grateful. I'm sorry, I'm so happy and grateful, blah blah blah, right? And she said every time I did the affirmation, said happy and grateful, my imposter syndrome would show up because those words happy and grateful were not resonating. So we changed it around and said, okay, so why not ask why we're so good at achieving blah blah blah. And that by changing that, it set our brains to tell us, well, this is why, and this is why, and this is why, and this is why. So it just shifted that affirmation to remaining an affirmation. But by shifting your languaging, it changed the direction of how our brains work. We kind of like stop ourselves. And that imposter syndrome thing, I came up with this thing with imposter syndrome. I gave my imposter a name. And now I put Lara in the corner. So she just goes to the corner. I'm like, I'm not having you today. And I put her in the corner. But before it wasn't a thing. Now it's something. And so now I have more control over it just by naming it. So imposter syndrome doesn't bother me. So I can say happy and grateful and whatever. It doesn't affect me that way, because if she comes out, I send her to the corner.
Nice.
Yeah. So I love how you do that and you switch that around with languaging. And how can you help our listeners see the wood for the trees? We say wood through the trees, but wood for the trees.
It's funny, isn't it? Because whenever somebody asks me that question, it's like I sit with what's going to come in now, not what do I say every time.
Yeah.
And where my head's gone this time is to draw the wood. So if you can't see the woods for the trees, or however, draw the woods or the trees that represent the situation.
Yeah.
Draw it on a piece of paper. Notice that, how many trees there are. Notice how many branches. Notice whether you can see the sky. Notice how far apart the trees are. So it's not about getting, the critic out and saying, oh, that's not a tree. It's drawing it so that you can see it and go, yeah, that picture represents how I do it. And then make changes to it. And it sounds so simplistic, and yet, you are originally starting off drawing a picture that represents the stuck situation. By making changes to that picture, you are changing your internal representation about the situation.
Yeah, you're rewiring your brain because,
Yeah.
there's a portion of our brain, and I don't want to get into details because that'll take too long. There's a portion of our brain that keeps us protected. So it goes, wait, whoa, hold on, stop. And that gets in our way. So we need to rewire our brains to work around it. So I love that by drawing it out, you can make the picture look different and say, okay, looking at it the way it is, what can I do to change the way it is? And while you're doing that, your brain is solving the problem. So we're looking at the what, not the how, similar to goal setting. We look at the what you want to do, not the how. Don't talk about the how when we're goal setting. It's the what. Our brains will figure out the how. The how will come. That all that stuff, but don't self-sabotage, right? By putting limitations on. That's what you're looking at.
I am indeed saying that. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lori Anne. We are here with Alison Smith. Unbelievable. Love this. I can't wait to continue the second segment. We're going to take a short break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lori Anne. I am Coach Lori Anne. And if you would like to be a guest or lift up your business, product, or not-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, we would love to hear from you. Please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. And you're listening to us through the great JVC Broadcasting and iHeartRadio. And I'm so excited to be here again with Alison Smith. She is giving us so much yummy, yummy goodness that I want to just dive right back in and talk to you about what you're doing with your clients. Here's my question for you and that's my pup deciding to be very vocal. Here's my question to you. How can you help my audience stop going around and around like Groundhog's Day in circles and to actually turn a corner, get unstuck and put the stick down that we're beating ourselves up with?
Sorry, I'm just writing those down. Right, so the circling, I would encourage anybody listening now not to think, oh, yes, I'll do that later, to actually just press pause and go, press pause after I've said, go and get a piece of paper and a pen.
Yes.
But then remember to come back, obviously. And then to think about the situation that they feel like they're going round in circles about. And then once they've got that situation in mind, put that to the back of their mind. I'm not asking them to think about it anymore, but they just need to understand that that's the situation they're wanting resolved. And then I want you to, if you're following it, is to draw the circle that represents and to just notice what you notice about the circling. So it might be that you're going clockwise, it might be you're going quickly, it might be a small circle, it might be a large circle. And you can do this not by drawing it, you can do it walking it. But I'll do the instructions assuming you're drawing it. And then the idea is to make changes to that circling. So it might be to change direction. It might be to go quicker. It might be to go bigger or smaller. It might be to try and break free. It might be to go round in triangles. It might be to go round in squares. It's really all about making changes. And it never fails to amaze me about at some point you will make a change and you will no longer be able to go around in a circle. It's something in the brain just goes, and then it's the, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. I shouldn't be doing that or whatever. Yeah. So then logic will sort of make itself known and go, oh, this is what you need to do differently. So it's about, and it could be for some people that they need to use a different colour pen. One person, when they did it, turned around to me and said, my circling has been like I've been going round the moon and I just need to break free of the moon's gravity and get back to Earth. And they drew. And so I've got a picture of this gorgeous that they sent me of the moon and then the circling to get back to Earth. And it just felt, oh, yeah, I just needed enough momentum. And it's the momentum to break free, etc.
Yes, yes. It's about awareness, right? Everything starts with awareness. We have to be aware. So by doing these exercises, it really bubbles it up. And you're like, you're taking notice, but you're not focusing on what it is. and how to fix it. You're just becoming aware. You're being present with it.
The corner turning is just beautiful. And yet every time I do it, I'm always worried that, is this the time it's not going to work? But it always works. And this is when you need to go out into nature somewhere and turn a corner. And just notice what you notice before the corner, as you turn the corner, and when you get round the corner. And something at some point, it's either, I've left what I was worrying about behind because I can no longer see it. Sometimes it's about, I do need to turn a corner, and I'm trying to be able to see round the corner, and I can't. Corners can't be seen around, Right. So I'm trying to do something that's impossible. Therefore, I do need to make steps around the corner, then I can see around it.
And kindly talk to yourself about that too. It's like, well, no, you can't see around the corner. So you have to turn the corner. You have to make that change, take that step, take that action. I'm a take action success coach and strategist. You got to take that action to turn the corner, and then you're going to see what's in front of you.
Yeah. And I think what happens, and as we said right at the beginning, really, is that people will see the patterns in nature that resonate. So quite often what I've found when I've turned a corner is the sun comes out, or the path is really clear ahead, or there's something that enables somebody to go, why am I waiting? Yeah. This is beautiful around here. And I'm worrying I'm around the corner, worrying about this, this straight path that's really clear, and I know where I want to get to. Yeah. And then you did ask about putting the stick down we beat ourselves up with.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a great technique. During COVID, I went for a walk with the little boy next door. And so he's there. He was my videographer while I'm going, right, I'm going to pick sticks up and I'm going to put them down. And it's one of those things where, okay, if I'm beating myself up with a stick, I'll pick some sticks up, put them down, and I'll throw them away. And what I realized was, there's more than one stick. Sure. And then the more I've done it, and the podcast, which is Landscaping Your Life with Alison Smith podcast, there is a hilarious, I think, episode, Putting the Sticks Down, because it's that revelation for me that I was at the top of a hill and there were no sticks. But metaphorically, boy, did I have a stick I could beat myself up with. And it's like, oh my God, we go around life picking up sticks, putting it in like on a backpack.
Like a quiver, yeah.
Yeah, in order to be able to beat ourselves up at some point in the future. What? I mean, that's nonsense. Yes, there's a brilliant stick for me to beat myself up because I know that in 2 days' time, I'm going to need it. And so it's a real fun one about it's not the stupidity because we all do it, but there's oh my God, really? Yeah. And so that's really quite fun. And so I would encourage people to go out, pick up the sticks. So there might little sticks, big sticks. Imagine what you might, pack you might be putting them in, and then go, you know what? I'm going to envisage taking the pack off. I'm going to envisage cutting the whole, the handles of the bag, or I'm going to burn the sticks. So a friend actually took some sticks home and put them in the fire when they got home.
Yeah, I love that. And if they do it on a full moon too, it's extra, it's extra, so much more vibrational to be able to do something like that. But I love that. Put the sticks down, put them down. So
don't pick them up. Don't pick them up.
Don't pick them up. You're right. Yeah. Just leave them on the ground. They're fine there.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's that stick I would have picked up in the past. But you know what? I'm going to leave you there.
Right. That's right. We need to talk nicely to ourselves. And I always say that, would you say to other people, would you say to a little child what you say to yourself sometimes? And if the answer is no, don't say it to yourself.
Yeah, nice.
No one should say that. No, I used to be the harshest. No one could say anything harsher to me than I said to myself. And then I was like, why am I speaking so not nice to myself? So I stopped doing that. And it changes. It changes your vibration, your perspective, your lens, your vision. It just changes everything. And speaking about changing, I love journaling. And your other book that you have is the Prescription for Wellbeing Journal. It's a journal that you have. Shameless plug. I want you to show it for the people who are watching, for the people who are listening. It's called The Prescription for Wellbeing Journaling. Beautiful. Nice job. So let's talk about this, because I find it, I never used to journal. I was like, I don't want to journal. I don't want to write it down. I don't like that. I don't want people to find it. I don't want blah, blah, blah. I was giving myself all these excuses for not doing it. And when I started doing it, it was so freeing. What was even more interesting is when I went back to my writing, I was really taken back. I was like, wow, I'm a little smart.
Yeah.
I was pretty inspired with my observations that I was making at the time. It was so full of emotion that I didn't really see what it was really saying. So by going back and rereading it, I wasn't revisiting it to hash it. I just wanted to see what it was like maybe a month ago, a year ago, whatever, and then see where I am today, to really be able to look back and celebrate my growth and to celebrate where I was at the time and now look at where I am today. So let's talk about this journal.
The journal it became about, I suppose, during menopause for me, because, I was constantly overwhelmed, anxious, you name it. And there were certain things that certain activities that I knew worked for me, but I would forget them. So I'd be in that circle again, going, waking up at 3 a.m, having a panic attack and forgetting what worked to get me out of it. So the prescription came about as, I did a video blog once for a minute as I did the plank, because a plank is just, oh my God, will get me out of most moods, really.
Yes.
And I called it a prescription. It's like, oh yeah, well, we just need to write a prescription. And so I was doing a workshop for a team and ended up having to do this prescription template for them and realized, oh, well, wouldn't this be great? That if we get it in a journal and people can then write a prescription for, what helps me when I can't sleep? What helps me when I want to be more confident? What happens when I'm having those panic attacks? Or when I want to be more focused? And so what I've ended up with is a prescription template that asks you for your symptoms. It does also ask you about the sayings, which taps into the other book, I suppose, the Can't See the Wood for the Trees, which you could then solve the problem like using that. But then it's just like, write a list of things that help. So it could be doing the plank, it could be going for a walk, it could be ringing Amy or whoever. The other thing in the prescription is, and I'm so good at this, what am I doing that I know is not helping?
Yes.
So
Me too.
Yeah. So when I can't sleep and I'm getting anxious, I just laugh because I just know it's that I've been watching too many doom-laden movies with guns and shooting and death and end of the world, because I really get hooked into watching them. But I sort of know that
it's a trigger.
I'm headed for that. Sleepless nights. So it's things like, oh yes, I'm doing too much of that, or oh, when did you? Because I live on my own and work on my own quite a bit. And it's that whole, when did you last speak to somebody that wasn't anything to do with work? Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
When did I last see the kidlets next door?
Yeah. That's so funny that you say that, because I also say to myself, oh, that's not helpful. And I laugh. And I spend a lot of time laughing at myself because I'm like, I'm doing a Lori Anne again. I'm just putting myself in a position that I don't really need to do. And why am I doing this? I don't know, but stop it. So I just up and I shift. And that's the coolest thing.
So I think the thing is that what the journal does is enable you to actually write that down. I suspect from a neuroscience point of view, writing it down will help you remember.
Yes.
But the other thing is you've then got a reference book you can go back to and say, right, because there's an index at the beginning that you can add to. And there are some suggestions. And there's a bit of my poetry as well. But on the whole, the aim is you write your prescription, you've got it then to refer to say, oh yeah. That's a really quick way for me to shift into that, be more focused.
That's a great tip for when you're stuck. Is that your top tip for when you're stuck, is to use the journal?
I would go to language, but I think that's the journal would be easier for other people. I'm really good
That's
at
easy to implement. That's a good starting place, I think.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And I think because actually thinking about it, there is a part of the prescription that says what idioms are you using and what words are you using. You might then be able to go, oh, that's interesting. I'm always using particular sayings. And then that would enable you to sort of go off and go, oh, okay, more metaphorical. How can I solve it and stop doing it using metaphor?
Yeah, yeah. And I do say often to clients, languaging matters. So when
Yeah.
people are talking, I'm like, languaging matters. So do you want to rethink that? Do we want to revisit that? How can we say it in a different way that would be more empowering and less diminishing? So languaging really, really makes a difference. And I find too, when you start writing, you notice your patterns. And that's something that I love about journaling too, is you can notice your patterns, but totally brilliant about writing a prescription. I'm so going to do that because I get that 3 a.m. in the morning and I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, why am I awake? And this is not helpful. And I have to get up in 3 hours. So I need to go back to sleep. And writing a prescription is a good idea. It's like, okay, what will get me back? Because once you find it, like you, I'm like, what was it again that I did?
Yeah.
And having multiple things to go to, because one thing doesn't always work every single time, right? So you have multiple. I love it. I love it. Tell me about what's next for landscaping your life.
I read a book before Christmas, and it was a fiction book, and it just said the character in the book said, I've always wanted to write. And then the character finished the sentence. But I finished the sentence myself and went, I've always wanted to write a fiction book.
So
I've started writing the fiction book, and it is metaphorical. It's about a wood that can't see itself for the trees. So it's all about a sense of community being lost. So the wood forest is a community, and it loses its sense of community because it loses its sort of the center.
yeah.
And it's how does it get its center back?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Do we have an ETA for when that's coming out?
No.
We'll come back on the show. I want you back.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So we can promote it. There's another observation I've made, and I was like, I love it because it's like I'm very organized, and I love that I color code everything. And I notice the books on the bookshelf behind you are color coded. You have like the yellows together, and the pinks together, and the blues together, and the greens together. Did you do that with purpose, and why?
Brilliant question. It was during lockdown, so I did have time because I can tell you it takes a while to find books that are just all green or all purple. The other thing is my logo is this. So here is the sky, and it's like landscape. So this is the sky landscape. This is the mountain landscape. This is the wood. Then we've got a bit further down, we've got the river, and then we've got earth.
Oh my goodness.
So yes, and the books go in order of size because then it does reflect the logo. So, but I can't find a single book that's on there. So, because everywhere else my books are by genre on the whole, here it's by colour. And do you remember what colour your books are? No.
Yeah.
So when I can't find a book, it's, I wonder whether it's on this one, and then I have to search for it.
Well, that's not helpful, but it gives you another project to do, so it keeps your mind busy. That might be one of the prescriptions when you can't sleep is to look.
Hey, cool, yeah. Oh, yeah, can't find the book. Oh, this book that you always look for. I mean, I suppose there are some key books where I absolutely know where to go to, but
no, it was really interesting. So I was looking at it going, and that's very intriguing for me. So I had to point that out. But I really love that. Last thoughts for our listeners. If you gave them one piece of best advice, what would that be, other than buying your 2 books and listening to your podcast?
Be a bit more patient, because nature is patient. It's like we don't plant a seed and expect it to appear and prod it and unroot it and go, are you there when what? And get angry with the seed for not, actually a seed is only going to grow if we nurture it, if we make sure it's got the right conditions, but it isn't going to do it overnight. Yeah. And there's so much in terms of the seasons, in terms of day and night, the tide. I live near the sea, so the tide, growing. So there's all sorts of patterns in nature that are about patience and perfect timing. And I think humans try and rush it through, and then, or sometimes, and I know not all parts of the world have got 4 seasons, but a lot of them have. And it's as if we quite often go, oh, I've got to go from winter to autumn and miss out spring and summer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned patience, because in the last 6 months I've been taught patience because I'm working on a project and I wanted it done already. In my mind, it was done in July, and I'm still waiting. And so I've had to learn patience. But what I learned by being patient is I learned other things along the way that I would not have been able to see had it been complete when I had wanted it complete. So the process, so it reminds me, it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. We'll get there. And then you're going to have another journey. So you really want to enjoy that and have the patience. And like you said, we have to nurture it. And that's what I was missing. The nurturing of it, the listening, the stopping, the taking the pause and absorbing it in like the seed would absorb the water and the food that you're giving it. So we need to go through life that way. Oh my gosh, Alison, you are amazing. What's your website?
Well, just look for Landscaping Your Life everywhere and you'll find me. Is the easiest way.
Landscaping Your Life Everywhere by Alison Smith. You find her books on Amazon. Go for her podcast. You definitely want to seek out the one that says Putting the Sticks Down. Apparently it's hilarious. I'm going to let you know. And I'll have all her information with this episode as well. Thank you all for being here. Alison, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Coach Lori Anne. I hope we have earned the privilege of your time. Look for our show next Saturday at 3 p.m. We can be found on all major platforms, and we would be so grateful if you please like, follow, and share and subscribe. Until next time, I am Coach Lori Anne. Play a higher role, serve a higher purpose, show up for you, and show up big. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you again, Alison.